We're playing Unfair Flips, a game about flipping a coin. And as I understand it, we need to get, I think, 10 or 20 heads in a row. Which, if you look at the top of the screen, might be a problem for us. Yo, what's up, everyone? LegendBegins here. I love these kinds of games. A unique spin on gambling. Our goal is to make enough money to buy the power-ups necessary to ensure that we get enough heads to beat the game. So we see on the side, welcome to Unfair Flips, a game about probability. And as we continue to get tails, I assume that sometime we will unlock these power-up options. Let's see, do we want to be able to flip it more often? So we gotta do some math here. Do we want to multiply or increase our heads chance by 5%? That sounds like it'd be really nice, because that would get us to 1 in every 4. That's a 25% increase from where we are now. That's pretty nice. That sounds better than flipping more often, especially if we're spending this long thinking about these. Okay, combo mult. We do not need combo mult before we can actually get any heads. So this is clearly the, this is definitely the optimal way of playing this. Made by Heather Flowers, art by Gwendolyn Marchant, special sound effects by Sureshu. Neat. So hopefully this 1 in 4 chance will eventually come to our favor. Oh, and at some point we get to upgrade the base coin worth. That's cool. I would love to get a higher heads chance, but unfortunately right now, we're just not getting any. Okay, hold on now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, okay, about 10 tails in a row with a 0.25 chance. Well, I flip this. Let me do the math on that. Let's say that it's 10. Okay, to win the game, get 10 heads in a row. So let's say, what is 10 tails at 0.75 chance? So 0.75 times, this is ridiculous, 0.75, not times, to the power of 10. That's about a 5% chance. But I'm pretty sure that this is like, we got like pretty close to 20 there. So let's say, what's 0.75? This is exponential, so that's gonna go up way faster. Well, now we got two heads in a row, and we got a fun Steam achievement for it. But if it was like 0.75, okay, I don't know about that. I think this game is messing with the odds. Like, the 3 heads, I'd believe that. But that long string of tails, I feel like it was entirely just so that they could give us the narrative. Because 0.75 to the power of, like, 20 is 0.003. I need to look up playthroughs of this and see if anybody ended up getting a lot, like, any heads in that sequence. Irrespective, we need to be able to flip this thing more often. And honestly, if that's 1 cent, we might as well. Okay, now we just gotta hope that we get 10 heads so we can increase our chance even more. Because right now, alright, there's one. I mean, 0.25 twice in a row, that's about a 12.5%. So that's reasonable. I expect to see multiple heads in a row every now and then. This is the entire game. Like I said, I love games like this just because it takes a concept and, forgive the pun that I just realized, flips it on its head. Guys, we are so funny. And girls, I don't want to exclude. Anyway, before I dig myself into a deeper hole, let's see if we can get any more heads. There's one, and it ends at 1. That's okay. There's one. Can we get another one? We cannot. What do you think? This is certainly one of the games of all time. We have taken a roguelike. You're not even a roguelike. What would this even be? A gambling game? I mean, it's kind of a roguelike. It's kind of an idle game. Yeah, it's closer to an idle game, which I hate idle games. I hate idle games. I play them, and I get like sucked into them, and then I get mad at myself because with idle games, it's so easy to like just chase that number, and I end up sitting there and at the end of the playthrough realize that I spent hours upon hours doing nothing but watching big number go up. And for me, that is such a like preeminent waste of time. I get it scratches like part of your brain or whatever, and I get people love them and I respect those who love them. I cannot do that. I absolutely just cannot, because I get to the end of the play session and I feel fundamentally unsatisfied with how I've spent my time. Let's increase our heads chance. This is definitely going to help us more than anything else right now. Getting up to 30%, 1 out of 3, and that'll combo with our combo. What do you know? Come on, game. Alright. I feel like it's probably telling us true odds now, I would have to guess. At least in terms of, like, from a game development perspective. In terms of the actual odds here, it doesn't really feel like that. We should be getting it a little less than 1 out of 3. But, like, wow, it sure doesn't feel that way. And I think that part of it goes to, like, in human psychology, right? We value losses of what we already have. And when I say value, I mean, like, where we place what is important. Values losses a lot more. This is your 100th flip. Hey, 3 in a row. A lot more than we value getting new things. So we're all about loss prevention. In fact, that's why my role exists in risk analysis. 0.2 second flip time or combo molt. At this point, I think a combo molt is probably worthwhile. Anyway, part of my... Hey, look at that. Look at that. Anyway. Hey, look at us. We're doing great. Now we just need to get... Oh, if we get 25 cents, I should have saved for that. Wow. But anyway, but yeah. So I work in, like, the cybersecurity field. I evaluate risk in organizations, applications, and so on. And so it's one of those. It's interesting because loss prevention is basically all we do. We don't add new value, but we help you not lose money, which none of us like losing money. I sure don't like losing money. Come on, you can do this, Mr. Coin. Get us to that point. You know, it's funny. I am going to nerd out real quick because we're watching a coin flip, and so I get the opportunity to do these kinds of things with you all. I mentioned in another episode, and this is an aside, that there are some games where all I can commentate about is the game because it does demand the majority of my attention. And then there are others where you don't really have to respond that dynamically to the game, and so my mind can wander, and we can talk about all kinds of other fun things that I just think are interesting, and hopefully you think are interesting as well. And I would assume, based on the fact that you're still here just because we're flipping coins over and over, that you probably do think they're relatively interesting. But that being said, going back to the original discussion, when I started at the role I have now, and I was doing a training on threat modeling, which is like the art of figuring out how risky your system is, whatever system you want it to be. There are multiple endings to this game. Interesting. I wonder if there's a secret one if we click the right thing. Or not. When you reach 9 heads in a row. Oh, interesting. Presumably you don't hit tails in your 10th flip. The game will select an ending randomly. Oh, I don't love that. Anyway, and so I was talking about threat modeling, which is like evaluating your risk, your attack surface, and all that. And one of the things that it says is, oh, you can threat model anything. It doesn't have to be like a computer system. You can threat model walking down the street or making a sandwich, which I find amusing to this day. Someday I will actually do a threat model of making a sandwich, but that is not today. Of those endings, you have a 10% chance of the coin actually landing heads. Of those endings, you have a 10% chance of the coin. I don't know what that means. I guess we'll find out. I would really like to upgrade the value of this coin. Ah! Look at that, now it's a nickel! We get 5 cents for every head, so look at us. And if we get multiple heads in a row, I wonder how much the multiplier is going to go up. So you see, the problem is, as we increase our heads chance, getting 5% is proportionally less valuable to us. So to give you an example, right, like 90 to 95% is way smaller of a gain compared to like 20 to 25%. And the latter, we're going up by 25% of our initial ratio. So we'll be getting 25% more heads at that point. But if we went from 90 to 95, that 5% is only 1/18th of an increase, and I don't... What is the math of that? A little more than 5%. So we're going up by, well, like 5%, which like is not bad. It's not a bad thing, but it's definitely not nearly as good as being able to go up by 25%. And when we have other things that might have a proportionally greater value to us, it might not make sense to prioritize our heads chance, which I find interesting. You know, it reminds me of this one theory for why time seems to speed up as you get older. And one of them is that as you age, the amount of time that each instance takes, like let's say a year, is proportionally less for the life that you've lived up to that point than it was when you were younger. So like if you live, let's say you're 10 years old, a year is a tenth of your life. So a year feels like forever. But if you're 30 years old, hey, let's go. If you're 30 years old, honestly, let's increase the coin worth. Yeah, that's huge for us. That's doubling our potential here. So let's say you live, so you're 30 years old. A year is only 1/30th of your entire life, so about 3%. So it is 1/3 as valuable to you, and when I say valuable, I mean like relative to the amount of time you've lived, compared to when you were 10. And so it's one of those things that as you're looking back on how long a time period is relative to the rest of your lifespan, it just seems like less. So that's always fun. This is my segue to the next topic. Well, why did I even bring that up? What was I talking about? Proportionality. Oh, I guess it's the same concept, right? That compared to a little is a lot. But compared to a little is a little. And you can put that on a shirt. With that being said, what was the other thing? I had a really interesting... Oh, yes. When it comes to things like shuffling music, interestingly, because like this game, I mentioned earlier, it didn't feel random. And right now, it doesn't feel random. If there's a 1 out of 3 and we're getting this long string of tails, that feels kind of ridiculous. But ultimately, these kinds of runs of a certain value are going to happen. But it feels bad. But it doesn't feel bad when I get multiple heads in a row, despite the odds of getting 2 heads only being 9%. What do we want? Let's do the heads chance. Why not? I mean, I kind of have to balance between these anyway, just because it gets really expensive really fast. Give me another heads. That's unfortunate. But that being said, so random doesn't feel random to us. Humans are pattern-seeking machines, and we hate random. So Spotify actually had to manipulate their music randomization algorithm way back in the day, like 2014 or so. And it's because people were complaining that the music wasn't random. Like they would get 2 songs from the same artist back to back. And they're like, come on, this isn't, like, you've messed up your randomness. And Spotify was like, no, it's just that when we're dealing with randomness, you will sometimes get the same thing twice in a row. And people didn't like that. They don't like that answer. Let's go. Let's go. All right. I wish I'd increased the multiplier before that, but whatever. Come on, heads. Aw. But that's very helpful to us, actually. So they had to modify the algorithm to make it so that you were unlikely to get videos of similar quality next to each other. So if they're part of the same artist or the same album, it would automatically shuffle them in such a way that they wouldn't be close to one another. Which I find kind of insane, right? That you are deliberately having to violate randomness in order to make it feel more random. And I understand, right? Like if we think about this from a consumer satisfaction perspective, I don't value true randomness in my shuffling algorithm. I value the ability of my shuffling algorithm to give me a variety of songs that I might want to listen to without them becoming stale. And so to that extent, right, like true randomness is not a good way of accomplishing that goal. But I just find it funny that when we go into this discussion of like what feels random, we have clear evidence and real use, like business cases, of randomness not actually being A, what people desire, but B, when they get randomness, they claim that it is broken because it doesn't feel random. So that's one of the reasons that with like within like computer security and computer science, we can't rely on humans to generate true random values. In fact, we can't actually really rely on computers to do that either. We have to lean on, how would I describe it? Sources of entropy that are unpredictable. Let's go! Quarters! Even if they aren't, quote, truly random. The only way for us to get to truly random, as far as we know, is to use quantum effects. And I'm not even using quantum in like the buzzword, like, oh, we're gonna like quantum everything. Like, no. Like actual particle movement is like to some extent unpredictable because we don't know where a particle will be at any given moment. We just have a probability distribution. Anyway, that being beside the point, that's the only way that we know of that I'm aware of anyway, for us to get true random values. But we can rely on other types of systems for us to get seeds for pseudo-random number generators. So like the temperature of my computer, if I get like a really insignificant digit, like let's say my temperature is 90.76151 degrees Celsius. Well, that last digit is going to change very rapidly because temperature is not this stable thing. And so if we use that as a seed for random number generator, even though it's technically not random, it's being controlled by a physical phenomenon that could theoretically be controlled or predicted if we have had all of the factors. There are so many factors and so much entropy surrounding it that practically speaking, it is for our purposes random. And so we can rely on those types of physical features to be able to generate seed values for our pseudo-random number generators. Because computers, although they can't generate truly random numbers, they can generate numbers that are very unpredictable given a starting point. So if you have the starting point, you can look as far forward as you want and predict the entire sequence. But if we pick a random starting point, and we don't tell anybody what the random starting point is, and they can't figure it out based off of the sequence, then we actually do have a good case for true randomness. So we can rely on what we would call true random number generators, and again, in the computer science world, true random number generators just means that like we aren't generating it deterministically, so it's not going to be the same thing every time, like our temperature sensors. That being said, caveat, and I'm sorry if I'm nerding out and boring you, but a game about probability lends itself to a discussion about randomness and probability. Anywho. But that being said, give me one more heads. There we go. And we can buy something else. Do we want more combo or do we want a higher heads chance? Honestly, I'm kind of feeling combo malt. Yeah, let's do that. But again, this game forces us to balance anyway, so there's not that much optimization. But yeah, that's nice. That 2 in a row gave us almost the $10 we needed. So yeah, that was the play. But that being said, what was I going on about? Our random number generators. Yes, so we can generate a seed value for a pseudo-random number generator, and as long as it's unpredictable, then we should be fine. In fact, I think it's Cloudflare, and they protect like a huge majority of the internet. I don't love the consolidation of a lot of stuff on the internet. Ooh, look at that, sped up. I don't like that we have just a couple of major providers that end up owning basically like the entire internet. Kind of stinks. But that's another discussion and neither here nor there. But that being said, right, yes, these multiplier sequences are really helping us out a lot. But that being said, right, our I think it is Cloudflare, for their randomness, actually just has a wall of lava lamps. And because the movement of the liquid inside of lava lamps is unpredictable, they have a pretty high confidence that any of the random number the random numbers that they derive using like the colors on the display are going to be truly random because you have the lava lamps moving in an unpredictable pattern. But what I was going to say earlier, especially with regards to things like temperature sensors, is that you have to be really careful about only using like one source of entropy. Because hear me out. Let's say, for example, I got to get to $10. That's going to take a while. You know, now that I think about it, this is just one of those like idle games we're building up over time. The kind that make me upset, but that's okay. Because I'm getting to talk to you guys and hopefully having an entertaining discussion, even if I'm on the background, kind of like a podcast as you're listening. And if so, thank you so much for listening in. It does mean the world to me. But that being said, which I think I've said a lot today, the temperature sensors, you have to have a form of redundancy, because let's say you only have a temperature sensor and one day it breaks, it goes out and it's only recording the same value every time. This is your 500th flip. Wow. So if this is a 20-minute episode so far, how many are we doing a minute? 20 minutes, 500, that would be in 2 minutes we would do 50, so we're about doing 1 a second, I would say, approximately. That's a very, very napkin off the top of my head math. But let's say that your temperature sensor goes out and it always records that you're like 90 degrees Celsius or something like that. Then your random numbers are always going to have the same seed.
Oh, you see this? You see this? Humans have a strange relationship to probability, even when presented with completely truthful odds. As you can see at the top left of the screen, people still want to believe in some tricks, some way of cheating the odds, flat as they are. So I don't like casinos. There's no way to beat these odds. There's only time. True. But, you know, I would love to get it to 50, so it's an actual coin flip over and over, which we'll actually have to get it above 50 unless we want to wait on average 1,024 flips before we get a sequence of 10. Actually, I think it would be, if it's a 1 out of 1,024, the expected number of flips we would need is 512, is how I believe that works. But that is besides the point. But we need redundancy just so we're not getting the same seed value every time. And the reason that's important, right, is like, let's say that your encryption that you're using to talk to websites. So when you see like the HTTPS or the lock symbol in a URL, we need to have solid encryption. And if it's stuck to the same value every time, it might be possible to predict some of the key values that are used to establish an encrypted connection to the server. And if I can derive some of those values, I might be able to crack the encryption and then read your traffic. Which, think about all the things you said on the internet, like sensitive data, passwords, all kinds of stuff. That would be very bad. So we need true sources of randomness when it comes to protecting things online. So we need to have redundant sensors in case your temperature sensor does end up erroring out and fails to give you true random values, or unpredictable, high entropy values, we'll call them. But where was I going with that? If, for example, like, so one of the things you could theoretically do, right, is handle it kind of like cars handle failures and try to detect when something has gone wrong. Come on, give me another heads. Let's go! 5 in a row. That's $20. I like to see it. Let's go gambling. But if you were to try to detect it, like let's say you were looking for getting the same number from your sensor every time. Well, what happens when you're, instead of getting the same number, you're getting a sequence of numbers, like in a loop, like 90 degrees, 80 degrees, 70 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees. Then we would have to start keeping a tally and checking to see if there's a loop somewhere. And eventually that just gets to like a memory, like an unviable memory computationally expensive operation. So we don't have a great way of figuring out for sure definitively when a sensor goes bad. Like we can, but it would just be easier to have multiple sources of entropy that we can rely on. All right. Do we want to increase our multiplier for our combo? Do we want to increase our heads chance? We don't want to increase our flip time for $100. Let's double our coin value. Oh no, quadrupled our coin value. That's what I like to see. And the coin worth is maxed out. That's cool. So at this point, I'm thinking the combo mult is probably the way to go. That or the heads chance. We're getting to the point where we would like more heads chance. But it's high enough that I do get some streaks of heads, and having higher mult would rack up our money really quickly, which sounds nice. So 1x, 2x, 3x. Come on, game. You want to give me 4 heads in a row? That would make my life so convenient. I'm not even using the flip time appropriately because I'm definitely like waiting until it lands. And you can kind of click it a little bit earlier, but maybe it might be the case that if I click it too early, nope, I can just spam click. That's good to know. But that'll get annoying for you because that will probably come through on the mic. So we've talked probability, we've talked computer security, we've talked quantum physics. What do you not get from a Legend Begins episode, right, guys? Like, come on, you're getting a little bit of everything. You could drop out of college and just listen to Legend Begins. Don't do that. But, I'm not even gonna run with that. We're not gonna go a single step farther with that chain of thought. Playing for 25 minutes already. I could not sit here and stare at this game for 25 minutes under normal circumstances. But I noticed, like, when I'm on a call with buddies on, like, Discord or something, I'll often end up in a situation where I feel like I can't do anything except talk, which is fine. Because I don't mind talking, but I feel like I can't focus on doing anything else, otherwise I just stop talking. And I think that the same... $40! Wow! I think the same effect is $1,000! I think the same effect is leading to me being able to play this game without just being utterly bored, is the fact that, okay, we're almost at 50% coins. That's nice. Is the fact that talking to you guys is, our mult is maxed out. That's sad. Is kind of like just talking to my friends on Discord, except I'm the one talking the entire time, which is fine. That's what you come here for. And I need to make more episodes now that I think about it with some of my buddies, because I have a series a while back on us playing. Yo! Whatever. Our flip speed's maxed out. All we can do is head chance now, which is like, oh, look at that. Flip duration is now 0.9999998 seconds. I think that's a floating point error. I think it's supposed to be 1 second, and you have accidentally kept that number as a float. So look at that. Anyway, I made a series a while back of us playing SCP Containment Breach, and we also played, what was it? Oh, Nextbots on Gmod. That was a hilarious episode, by the way. If you haven't caught it, I thought it was funny. It's a highlight reel of us just getting utterly terrified by Nextbots, which I thought I had a fun time. So I need to make more videos with those guys. They're great. And the only problem is that they take forever to edit. Like an episode of it's like 30 minutes. Like these are 30-minute episodes that take 30 minutes to record, and they take usually like 15 to 30 minutes to edit. If I'm doing anything fancy, it might take an hour. And that's happened before, but typically it's nothing that like blows me away. Those take like hours to record, and then over like 4 hours, maybe like 8 hours to actually edit, because you're trying to cut out all of the bits in the in-betweens, which, yeah, it's fun, and it results in something that's really funny in the end, but oh, the investment is just really high. And that's, you know, it's funny because when making videos, a lot of the time the time investment question does come up of like, how long is this video going to take to make, and is it going to get like the pay, like is there a payoff for it, right? Because obviously, who wants to make, you know, spend 20 hours making something that only a couple people watch? Last time I did that, I think, was the Delmize's Demise meme, which I was very proud of. I thought it was funny, but people weren't that interested in it. But, you know, eventually we'll get to that point where, look at us, 6 in a row, $10,000 for the, this is gonna be rough, man. Wow. I think we're getting there to that point where we're like, we have a true coin flip now. And so, okay, all of these strings of tails, we should be having equivalent strings of heads. If this is true probability, we should be getting heads just as often as we get tails. And it looks like that's finally starting to happen now that I've manifested it into reality. Oh, 7. And I love the scale. The guitar sounds really nice. So if we just do that a couple more times. Give me a sequence. So yeah, the time investment is always an open question. Like I said, we'll get there. We'll get there. I'd love to get to 1,000 before the end of the year. YouTube loves calls to action. So if you've been enjoying this and you're not subscribed, it would mean the world to me if you join. Well, if you are subscribed or you aren't but just want to help for some reason, sharing this video is one of the best things you can do for my channel. So between, like, it's just, YouTube's a game of engagement, right? Like your watch time, your commenting, your liking, and your sharing all play a part, and the subscriptions, obviously. So if you know someone you think would enjoy having this on in the background, please send it their way. It would really help me out a lot, so I'd appreciate it. But that's okay if you don't. I am content to brute force this thing if I have to. I enjoy doing it, and you guys are great. I mean, I'm getting so many encouraging comments of people who are like, I'm surprised that this video only had like 20 views when I found it. Those kinds of things make my day, and it really is what motivates me to make more. And I've told the story before. When I started, like, there was a point, well, for many years, when I would have been like beyond thrilled to get 20. 30 would have been a massive success. And now that I'm at a point where 50 feels like a failure, is like, that I don't discount how much of a blessing that is to me. So I do certainly appreciate every single one of you who stuck around this far. And hopefully we can get to our 10 heads in a row at some point. It certainly feels like we could get 10 tails in a row if we really wanted to. But it's been a while since we've had a good streak. And I was hoping I would just manifest that into reality with that one, but unfortunately. I wonder if there's anybody playing this who's like, oh, if I flip it at just the right time, we'll be able to get a pure combo or something. They'll convince themselves that they've found some sort of superstition that gives them the sequence that they need, and that any time that they miss it, it's a skill issue. I'm very comfortable with probability, just like as a concept. I'm not saying I'm the best at calculating it, but I'm certainly... Let's go! Oh! Oh! Huh, I should have clicked that again. Let's do it. And it's tails. Okay, going back to this. That was close. We were 50-50 chance away. But now we have a higher chance of heads than tails, so things should be looking up for us. So yeah, so anyway, I'm very... Interestingly, $100,000, I feel like I'm way more likely to get the 10 in a sequence than I am to get to $100,000 without... Oh, I thought to get the $100,000... I feel like I'm more likely to get the 10 in the sequence than I am to get to $100,000, is my point. But you never know. I'm at 25,000. It could happen. If I get, like, multiple sequences of 9. Alas, we're not getting any long sequences, and $13 means nothing right now. It's funny, when we started the game, $13 was huge, which, again, going back to idle games just being funny number go up. But at least this one isn't, like, such a commitment that it, like, you know, it eats your life away. This is your 1,000th flip. Look at us. We've flipped 1,000 times. Which surely we will get some sequence at some point. 4, 5? No. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But I'm pretty comfortable with the ideas of probability, and I think that in part that's why I don't like casinos. And I've definitely told this story before. It is possible, although unlikely, that the game will never end. There are no safeguards to prevent such a thing. I believe that. This is an exercise in raw probability. 20% is unfailingly 20, 30 is unfailingly 30, 100 is unfailingly 100, though you cannot ever reach 100%. Is that true? Do we max it out eventually? That would defeat the purpose. I mean, not really. I feel like it would make sense to have the percent chance go up to 100 at some point if we can get enough money. But yeah, technically you're correct. It is not guaranteed we will ever beat the game. But I have a feeling, I have a feeling that the most unlikely sequence in the history of the universe will not happen on a Legend Begins episode. I have to say. And if it were to, I would be accused of cheating. So if any of you are big, like, game integrity folks, feel free to go through this footage, run all the math of my flips for yourself, and tell me if I've manipulated the game, because I most certainly have not. That would be too much work. And if we go back into how much work it takes to make an average YouTube episode, I am certainly not going and modifying my probabilities in such a way that it would benefit or detriment me to any significant capacity, because I have better things to do with my time than that. Oh, this video is going to be long. I try not to go over 40 minutes, but if that's what it takes to get this coin to flip 10 times in a row as heads, that's what it takes. I really hoped that we had it that one time. We were literally a 50-50 shot at beating the game. Which I know, like, there's a bit of a... Is it a gambler's fallacy? There's, like, this, Ooh. Aw. There's, like, a fallacy that's, like, if you get multiple heads in a row... Actually, I guess it'd be the opposite of the gambler's fallacy, because there's one if you get multiple negative events in a row, you assume that the next one has a higher likelihood of being a positive event. Whereas, so we just got a bunch of heads in a row, so, like, the natural human instinct is, oh, the next one's likely to be a tails. But it literally is just right now 55% chance of being heads again. And there it is. And we shall see. What? Flip the coin too high. Oh, there was a 20% chance at us just not getting the coin back. Oh, that's unfortunate. I would have loved to see what it landed on, but that's cool. I guess this is the end. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments down below, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.